Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 557.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because we are going to talk about something that, honestly, at the Cashflow Diary Podcast, sounds counterintuitive to me because we're going to talk about something that traditionally, historically, maybe even stereotypically, you have said to yourself, that doesn't produce cash flow. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about land. It's not something we talk about often, and there aren't many people that I'm aware of that know how to have land produce cash flow, especially when it's just land. Now, improved land, your apartment buildings, you guys know I love those. Cell phone towers, those are great. This stuff, land. I mean, I love them for short-term rentals. It looks really great. But here's the thing. What we have today, we have individuals who have been doing this for decades, for a very long time. What that means is that some of you who are listening to this were not born when they started. Keep this in mind. They've been doing it for as long as you have been alive, and they're now willing to share how you can do it too. I'm, of course, talking none other than Jack Butala and Jill DeWit. They've been doing this since 1999, professional real estate investors, and they focus in on land, but hear me clearly. You've heard me say it before, I'm going to say it one more time. I don't care how long you've done anything. You could say, yeah, I've been doing this 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. That means very little to me because what I care about is how much experience do you have? Because you could have 20 years of experience, but if you've only done one deal during that time, what's that really worth? However, when you've done 16,000 transactions over the course of your career, I would say your experience is worth a lot. So here's what that means for you and I. That means you and I, we get a unique privilege to ask some questions, understand the insides, and most importantly, right now, it's time for us to take some notes, to listen, to learn, and to love Stephen and Jill. Stephen and Jill, how you doing?
We're doing great, man. Thanks for having us on.
Yes.
I am pretty glad that you're here because, as you just heard me say, land is not something we talk about often because it's cash flow that we're after here. So we have a ton of business owners and entrepreneurs listening, and cash flow is what we're here to build. So I'm eager to hear how you guys do this and have done this with land. Now, before we go there, though, I have to ask you guys the same question I tend to ask everybody the first time that they're here. You ready?
Ready.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. You know, like Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, Hulk, etc. You get the idea. Because I think that entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. For example, as an entrepreneur, I can envision myself flying around town. Yes, I'm probably wearing a cape and tights at that moment. And saving our customers one sale at a time. However, also, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. I mean, if you think about Spider-Man, for example, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his thing, and all he was trying to do was earn some money to take Mary Jane on a date. That's it. That's all he wanted. And then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers he has a superhuman ability, and now he's presented with the choice. Do I use this for good or for evil? So, my question to you is as follows. Given everything that you guys have done collectively and individually, all the thousands upon thousands of deals before Land Academy, before helping the people that you have helped, before all of your in-person events, before just Well, everything. What we want to know is, who is Stephen Butala and Jill DeWit?
I mean, if I have to choose a superhero, it's hands down Batman.
Okay.
And here's why: because Bruce Wayne, like most superheroes, found himself in a situation he didn't want to be in. Inherited all this money, his parents got murdered, and he has no real powers. So he throws a bunch of resources that he does have access to, in his case, money and some help, and creates this character called Batman. With technology. So I think that's what being an entrepreneur is. You take something that you don't know what you're doing. You have an idea of how it wants to go, how you want it to go. You've got access to some resources, but certainly never enough resources, and you just make it work. So I think that's your question.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. What about you, Jill?
I'd have to say Wonder Woman.
Okay.
And not just because I like the outfit.
All right. Okay.
I have always, since you pointed it out, that yes, we've been doing this for decades, and yes, I watched her on TV. So, and I've always been a Wonder Woman fan, and that's how we roll too. Her in the way that she does things, straightforward, truthful. That's her, the what's it called? Her
lasso.
Her lasso of truth.
Yes.
I swear I walk around with that in my hand all the time. And that's how we roll. We are upfront and honest, whether it's good news or bad news. We're going to say it like it is. And I think that's kind of the foundation of Land Academy.
So you're like the 1970s Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Wow. Yes. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, all right. So let's riddle me this, Batman. What I want to know, though, is before you decided to put on the cape and the cowl, before you had the tools, where does Stephen start? Like, who was Stephen before that superhero moment, that incident where he discovers I've got something useful, or I'm in this situation I don't want to be in, and I need to find a way to deal with it?
I graduated from Michigan State in 1989 and almost immediately became a commercial real estate broker in one of the worst economic environments, and maybe the worst city from a real estate standpoint at that time. So I got thrust into an almost impossible situation, and I put myself into it. And then for the next several years, I have an accounting background. Next several years, made it work. I purchased and sold a lot of nursing homes and assisted living facilities for companies all around the country, because that's where I could accumulate data. The healthcare industry has a lot more data about real estate and other stuff than most industries. So through that, became a partner at KPMG. I'm skipping a lot of steps because Jill's story is way more interesting than mine.
If you say so.
And then, I cut my teeth on maybe the most complicated real estate transaction there ever was. It takes a year to buy a long-term care facility. You've got to get the federal government's approval, the state government that it's in approval. Then you got the natural stuff of a buyer and seller and financing. And we all know time kills deals. And after a year, a lot of those deals don't close. So I took it upon myself to create the simplest transaction from that experience, which is a buyer and a seller and a deed and a checkbook. And so we did 16,000 of those instead of just banging our heads against the wall commercial real estate wise. And here we are.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned the complication of long-term care. That was actually something, 8 years ago that I was looking into. And when I realized how complicated it was, I was like, there's got to be an easier one. I don't want to do that. I just didn't want to go through that process. Seemed like, it's almost like they don't want you in there.
Yeah.
It was very challenging to figure it out. And it's just like, you know what? Nah, I'll find something else out to do. But I get that 100%. And then simplifying your life also makes sense. So, Jill, no pressure, but he said that your story's more interesting. Oh.
Well, I grew up next to Disneyland, literally.
Okay.
That's how I knew it was 9:00 at night.
Oh,
when you heard
yeah.
the fireworks go off.
Right.
So I had a pretty awesome childhood, I should say. I I've always maintained I want to be by the beach, and we're right back here by the beach. So, and I knew growing up that, well, my dad was a Dale Carnegie instructor, and he became a commercial airline pilot. And he raised me on a couple things. Like one was, you can do anything you want. He said, I always wanted to have a career that I could work very little and make a lot of money. And I thought, well, that's sung to me. And he also taught me, act like you know what you're doing, and watch how things work out. And I've always walked around like that, and before you know it, you do know what you're doing. So I did some college and I got into travel. I worked for American Airlines, following my dad. And I never was far from real estate. I did work for some developers when I was early in my 20s. And I watched what was happening. They would buy dirt, but they would build it up into a strip mall or an office complex, lease it out and keep it. And I worked for them I saw the whole thing from the dirt to handling the tenants. So when I met up with Jack, aka Steven, years later, and it was just natural for me to get back into this. My dad was still always dabbling in real estate on the side, had his own investment properties wherever he was living, whether it was California or Texas. And so getting back into it for me was like, I'm home. So I love it.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Now, were you a pilot?
I am a pilot. I did not do it as a career. I just have my private pilot's license.
Dude, that is definitely something it's one of those things where you say to yourself, one day I'm going to go through that process, because it in fact, what's that?
It is kind of like, yeah.
I was, and there was a time where I thought I was actually going to go into the Air Force, and the only way I was willing to go into the Air Force is if I could be a pilot. And then when I was going for the exam, they told me very specifically, my legs were too long and my torso was too short. And I'm like, to be a pilot. I could still get in the Air Force, but I just couldn't be a pilot. So long story short, that didn't happen. But I still want to learn to fly, because that sounds like fun. It still sounds like fun to me. Now, I'm curious to hear a couple of things. In every superhero story, in every moment, every entrepreneur, they go through this process whereby they're bumbling along in life in some way, shape, or form. They appear to be like everybody else until there's an intervening event that typically calls them out, helps them recognize you, if you will, their unique ability. I'm curious to hear about what that unique ability you believe that exists for you, and more importantly, how did you discover it?
Oh, I think we have separate unique abilities. I'll go first.
I would hope so. I mean, if you're working together and you have the same one, both of you turning invisible would not be good.
I have two unique abilities. Number one is I think that I have knowing now after having a group, we've created a Land Academy group full of members who have a lot of different types of unique abilities. I understand now about myself through that process that ability to analyze data, real estate data specifically, and turn it into a successful blind offer campaign is pretty unusual.
Got it.
So there's that, and I just for whatever reason, I was born with this. When we start a project, I just won't stop. I'll be half dead before we just won't stop until it's done.
Got it. You got the follow through bug. I love it.
I think mine is, I have the ability to connect with people of all backgrounds, and over time, I just started to realize, one job after another, I come in the morning, there's 6 people sitting on my desk waiting to talk to me and tell me about their day or their weekend. And it was funny because at one time it was all like dating related, and they all wanted to ask my advice about dating, and they were all in different situations and different relationships and things like that. So, and then going further into career wise, I've never had trouble speaking to someone, regardless. Same thing though, their background, their education, their financial situation. I'm able to, kind of put myself in their shoes. And it really helps me now because, gosh, I talk to sellers and make them feel good when I'm buying property for very little money, or I can talk to big developers and hammer out really large deals just as easily.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting on something that's important for anyone considering real estate or business in general to be able to understand. I'm oftentimes, in fact, when I've interviewed or been looking for an executive assistant, one of the questions I'll ask them, I was like, can you talk to someone who you may have seen on television or play a sport, and in that same day, same conversation, also talk to your firefighter or teacher or sanitation engineer, whatever, and treat them both the same. Do you have that ability?
I just failed at that interview.
You did?
Because I can't do that.
It's funny, but I used to look at my friends and I wonder, you're right, Jay. I used to wonder, like, what's wrong? Why are they intimidated? I used to think there was something wrong with me because I would barrel into a room and I'm not intimidated about anything. I don't care who's sitting at the other end of the table, and it's never changed.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
Probably hated that, but.
well, I had a mentor. Oddly enough, his name was Steve. So, and he would say, it's like everybody, they have hopes like you do, they have dreams like you do, they have pain like you do. They're human, and that helped me to humanize anything that I might have, accredited someone with that would cause that hesitation. And it's just something that absolutely is necessary. So now, here's the thing that I have to ask. As you're going through this journey, at least for most of us, we're told at the beginning to go to school, get good grades, get a job. Is that a message that you managed to receive too? Hey guys, thanks for listening as always, and I'm glad that you continue to support with each and every download and subscription and share. One of the things that I want to ask you though is, where are you listening to me from right now? I know some of you, maybe you're on a treadmill, maybe you're washing dishes, maybe you're walking that dog, and some of you are actually in a vehicle driving right now. One of the fun things that you can do, get some of your time back, is begin to living a car-free existence. But even then, it can be a little complicated. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to go over to Zipcar. Go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary. It's a way that I am able to still go get a car just for a few hours, very, very simply, so that if I have a lot of errands to run and sheets to drop off and running to the short-term rentals, or if I just want to go for a long trip up to LA and back, etc., I can rent a car for a very, very short period of time. And the cool part is I don't even have to pay for any gas. Again, go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary.
I think it's really smart to go to get some type of formal education. I don't think the traditional 4-year degree that we all kind of grew up on is necessary as much any longer, but I do think it's important to spend at least 2 years in the workforce, and I don't mean that really at Starbucks. I mean in a professional capacity. to realize whether or not you want to make that your career or if you want to go off on your own. For us, it was accounting. We were expected to, and I don't think this is the case anymore, to go work for a public accounting firm for 2 to 4 years, regardless of how painful it was. And believe me, it was painful. And then decide if you're going to go on the partner track or if you're going to go buy a company or start a company. And so I think that to this day, I think that it's still important to everybody on the show is probably they're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur wannabe. You have to go through that pain, and it's so painful for our personality types to really realize, man, I'm going to give it my all when I go out on my own.
Absolutely. Now, Jill, I have a special question, or that same question, but for a special reason. I am a father of 3 daughters.
Oh.
Okay. And 1 son, so I don't want to forget him too. But specifically, my daughters, one of the things that I care about is making sure that, when they leave the house, is that they have a skill set such that they are not dependent. They don't believe themselves to be dependent on a man to be able to earn an income. And I'm just curious to hear if any of that was anything like that as a part of your decisions behind, your desire to be, independent and separate, but how that message of go to school, get good grades, and get a good job landed for you?
I was raised that way, that you're raising your girls, and I love that. It was never, we just want to get her to that point, get her married off. It was, what are you going to do with your life? And my dad kind of raised me like my brother. What are you guys going to do? Think big, go big. And I'm right here. I won't let you fall that far, kind of thing. I'm going to let you fall, but not that far.
Right.
But it really did encourage us to, just go for big stuff, which I really love, because I think that's part of why my brother and I both went big, man. So
that's kind of how we say it here. It's go big or go home. It's like,
exactly.
It's like, why are you going to bother?
Not to say anything, but he actually went to be the state treasurer of Arizona, and now he's the CFO for NASA. So we're kind of trying to one up each other all the time. It's awesome.
Well, I think the argument can be easily settled by who has more free time.
Oh, I totally agree with you, and I think I won.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was headed. I was pretty sure that was the case. That's why I said it, because there's a certain quality of life that I would imagine that you have that he is still hoping to obtain. Now,
exactly. I love him dearly, but I don't have a boss like he does, and this is nice.
Right. So with this as the context, then, let me ask you both this question. In your journey, on your way to seven figures and beyond, I guess the question then becomes, what is it? What are those top three things that you have learned that formal education could have never taught you?
I don't know, Jill. Formal education does not prepare you in any way, in my opinion, for the politics of an office, for sure.
Preach.
and just, I don't know why it's just never addressed. They certainly don't prepare you for, how you had, some of us took home economics in high school, where it's like, here's the reality of it. You got to have a budget. You got to do that. There's no school if there is one, I never took that class in formal education, like how to show up for life. That's what I would call a class.
How to show up.
So they don't prepare you. They prepare you academically for what's possible. They don't show you how to do anything. And so if you go into it and just academically discuss things and think about it and look at case studies, like maybe I think law school would be like, what the hell good is that? I think some of that's good for a while, but it's like Jill and I are big boaters. I took a class a long time ago to get my boating license in Michigan, specifically for sailboats. And all we did was talk about sailing, it was in winter. And I said, at what point are we going to actually get in the boat? And they're like, oh no, that's not going to happen here. So that's what I think formal education is like.
Well done.
I was trying to think about what would be my three, and I think formal education, what was missing for me is scrappiness, talking to people, and dreaming big. If those were classes, I would have taken those. I need to teach those classes, by the way.
Right. So let's hone in on something, because you both kind of you both kind of hinted at it, and I just want to see where let's see if we can take that a little bit deeper. Is the idea or the concept of thinking big? It could, one could imply from what you're saying that formal education limits one's ability to think outside or to a certain scale or way.
Yeah, I think I'm so this subject is so. Jill and I have 3 kids, and this subject is so. I never know what to tell these kids, because I do want them to go to school, and I want them to start out in a career working for somebody else. And 2 of them work for us now. Anyway, the 2 of the 3, and the third one's not old enough yet. So, I really think that I'm going to go back to my old answer. I really think formal education is important, but you just got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. So you're saying then that we tend to ascribe too much importance to it, or over-importance on it, not to exclude it, but it does have value if even if that value is only to give you context so that you might appreciate the other side of life.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll give a little anecdote.
Okay.
We develop a lot of websites. Tech is kind of my responsibility, and it's a very different role and a different process than buying and selling real estate, which has always been and probably always will be our main business. But we develop these tools, and I'm not selling anything here. We have one that's called Parcel Facts because it's very difficult. It's it's almost impossible. The vast majority of the real estate in this country has yet to be assigned a physical address by the post office. So all you have is the state and the county and the APN, the assessor's parcel number. And so there was no tool that I was aware of until we developed Parcel Fact, where you just put those in and it gives you all this information about, a property that's very rural, the GPS boundaries, the owner, how long they've owned it, what they paid for it. So it's been a huge tool for us in our membership. So all the tech people that were involved in these projects, without exception, went to a school like DeVry, or they went to some technical place they didn't go to Stanford, they didn't go to Harvard or even Michigan State. They went to these short-term, learn how to do it, not philosophize about it, learn how to do it technical schools. And so I think that now more than ever, that kind of education is appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah, I would definitely 100% agree. Vocational education has an immense value proposition relative to, what that traditional education typically costs, for sure. So now I'm curious, all right, everybody, listening, they know that real estate's something that's great, in some way, shape, or form. You guys know that I'm a cash flow person. I am asset agnostic, simply meaning I don't really care the underlying asset. I care, can it produce cash flow? That's it. But my question to you is, why land?
It's the easiest product type I think there is in this business. And the majority of the time, it's a seller and a buyer. And that's it. There's no agent, there's no lender, there's no appraiser, there's no inspector. And we can, with two people, I buy it from you, and I buy it so well, I mark it up, I resell it to the next guy. 3 people were involved, I just made money, and I can do it really fast.
Like within 2 days or a day.
Okay, we have questions now.
I can walk you through the anatomy of a deal really quickly, and it'll help.
Before we get to that, there's something that she said that I want to challenge, because you said land is the easiest, and okay, so and maybe it's because the majority of the time that I've looked at land deals or have considered them, I've been in the world of California or international. So maybe those are the two things that are at play here that have my perspective on land being way more challenging than what you are currently saying. However, between the EPA, the Coastal Commission, the environment, the potential for the surveys and all the other things that we've had to deal with in connection with just figuring out it, doing the due diligence, except it was challenging is not even the word, and then having to figure out how to turn that raw piece of land into something that produces cash flow was always, and still to some degree, a mystery, because I'm thinking about the entitlements and the building, and I was like, okay, so Jill, help a brother out, man. What am I'm missing something.
I love it, Jay. Well, this is one of the beauties of it. People, you're not alone. People think it's harder than it is, and it's really not that hard. I can send out an offer to a sweet little lady who owns 40 acres in, let's just say Kern County. They thought they're going to retire there. They're not going to. They never did. They never built on it. They get our offer. This is kind of how it goes. She calls me back, or she signs it and sends it back, by the way. It's got a cash amount on there. And
whoa. Hold on. Your initial contact with them is is literally an offer?
Yep. That's our very first thing right out of the gate. Dear Mrs. Smith, I want to buy your 40 acres at 8 p.m. Whatever it is, for, whatever $1,000. Here's who we are. Here's how I got your information, and here's if you want to look us up. And if that works for you, please, you can sign this and send it back to me, or you can just call me here and I can get it closed as early as, in a few days and get a cashier's check in your hand. And boy, does that sing to people.
Okay. Go on. You have my attention because, one, I get how you can acquire a significant amount of land, but now what's going through my head is things like due diligence. Did you do this ahead of time? How did you know I can figure out how to find the person. I get that to some degree. Maybe there's probably a ton I still don't know there because I don't know what I don't know. Yet I'm thinking about, how do I know I have the right piece of land? Now I'm thinking about easements and just other things that could exist to make sure I didn't buy, the sewer drain as opposed to the actual, plot of land I think I'm getting.
Right. So two things. Before she got my offer, a lot of Steven's magic went into it. We're just going to call it magic.
Okay, sure. I'm down.
He is the pricing master, picking hot, good areas, pro. Been doing it since the 90s. I don't question that at all. He pulls the right properties. He prices them beautifully. So by the time it comes back to me, all I got to do is do my due diligence, which is, now do I really want it? And on my offer, I have 6 exceptions on there too. This is subject to basically me liking the property, your back taxes not being too out of hand, and a couple other things. So I have an out if I don't want it. But the beauty is we just send them out in the mass. The people who like my offer, and these are pretty hot, low offers, and I know I can double my money overnight and still sell it wholesale and make somebody else's day. So when they call me back, I'm like, all right, I jump in. That's always been my role, our role. He's the data guy, and I'm the talker and the buyer and the seller, and that's what my team does. So she calls me back, then I do my due diligence. And I may buy it. If it has access, great. And all this stuff, I don't really care about. I'm a wholesale person. I'm not going to build on it. This is for rural vacant land. We do other types, but
sure.
The easiest is rural vacant land.
This works for all types of real estate, right, including skyscrapers in Manhattan.
Exactly. But then I start to do my due diligence. And I even will buy properties without access, but I might even change my price. Go, you know what, Mrs. Smith, I looked it up and I realized that road is nowhere near your property. You're going to need 4-wheel drive to get there. Have you seen it lately? And she'll say, yeah, I kind of thought so. And I might say, look, I thought it was this, and I apologize, but here's what I can make work. And then it's up to her, and oftentimes they're still going to say yes. And there's still somebody out there. You'd be surprised. I've learned over the years, just because it doesn't appeal to me doesn't mean it's not going to appeal to somebody else. There's some guy that wants to take a 4-wheel Jeep out there and ATV all day on his own property, and they love it. So, you never really know.
Totally understood. And I can see why they would absolutely take advantage of the offer. But I guess part of now what I'm thinking is, how do you guys actually make any money? Because that's really what's going through my head. Other than, obviously reselling it or selling it on terms are the two things that come to my head. But I'm assuming maybe it's more than that or something different than that.
Well, because here's an example. I have a commercial deal right now in Ohio.
Yeah. Okay.
I paid $50,000 for it. It's just a piece of dirt. It's sitting next to like a Dairy Queen and a McDonald's or something. It's like right in the middle. I paid $50,000. We're selling it for $300,000. It's worth $700,000.
Okay, hold on. I have questions. The person who you bought it from, were they not aware of its value?
They were completely
totally
aware.
They had it on the market for $700,000 and it wasn't moving.
They just weren't interested in owning the property anymore.
They were done.
Our whole business model is predicated on this concept, and I think a lot of very seasoned and successful real estate people miss this concept throughout their whole careers. Our model is predicated on not improving property. So when you talk about entitlements and EPA and all kinds of other stuff, that's for the person who we sell it to. And so we buy property and immediately resell it. In a lot of cases, the people that we resell it to then go and sell it on terms because we sell it so inexpensively. My task is to put together and implement an offer campaign that generates predictable and consistent results. So for every, let's say, 400 or 500 letters offers that we send out for rural vacant land, if I'm doing my job right, we buy property, we resell it, and double our money wholesale, and usually sell it to people who are going to sell on terms without any improvement. Now, this is just all paper sitting in front of a computer.
Yeah, totally understood. Now, okay, so then now let me ask you a couple of questions, Stephen. When it comes down to it, though, wouldn't this, because there are two things that are coming to my head. One is I've done direct mail campaigns. I usually don't enjoy writing the check for direct mail campaigns. So I'm curious, I'm assuming that was the impetus for being able to create the software so that you would only direct mail those that are the highest probability of success.
We've done it both ways. And I'm not, I'm happy to say I've done this a lot of wrong ways before we came up with the concept that we have now for decades. And to offset that cost, you're right, we started a company called Offers to Owners. So we are we are the bulk mail company. So we reduce costs that way. The real key to a successful direct mail campaign is sending offers with a direct custom dollar amount versus just a letter of interest. And I think some people miss that too.
Yeah, no, I was like, wow, how can they have enough information to actually make a binding offer as the first point of contact? Was that spoke to me immediately, because again, being able to execute that in and of itself speaks to the amount of skill that you've put into it on the front end. Now, I guess then my other question then becomes, because one of the major reasons I tend to like improved property or various other real estate strategies is simply for some of the, we'll call them the tax benefits that come along with it. And so I'm assuming this is very capital gains heavy then?
It's not, because it's treated as, that's a great question. It's treated as ordinary income because this is our primary business and this is what we do. Okay. So it's not, but as far as tax advantages and depreciation and all that, no, that's something that's not in our lives. And we have other investments that roll up, like S Corp roll up. Okay. That we're forced to do it that way, which is fine.
Got it. No, totally understood. But I'm just making sure that everyone understands you just got to have a plan to that it's there. The same thing happens for us with all of our short-term rental students. I'm always telling them that, like, look, it's great. You're going to love it. And you better have a plan for taxable income because it's coming. And the plan we often recommend is buying, obviously, improved property, etc. So I was just curious if that was the same thing or if it was somehow different. So when it comes down to purchasing land, I guess are there some, I just don't know what I don't know, but are there some like states that are better than others, or is this available to any state, like in the union, so to speak?
Technically, it really works everywhere. It just depends on how much you want to spend. Like buying property in New Mexico is a little bit different than buying property where you and I are sitting, right?
Come on. I want $1,000 piece of land in Orange County. You can do this.
Exactly.
We buy, and our members buy a lot of land in Orange County. We just launched a campaign in Los Angeles for infill lots. We're kind of filling an order for a developing company that they need property that's very specific zoning, in very specific zip codes that they've identified. They actually kind of made our life real easy. And so we're doing a bunch of transactions with them. So it's all about pricing and predictable results. So from a data perspective, it's almost like a data business more than a real estate business.
It's true.
I can see where that is. I can see why that would be, because the amount of I mean, just trying to limit the cost and the expense and the time to close, all those types of things. Curious, when you said you can close quickly, Jill, is title insurance involved in some way?
Most of the time it is, yes.
Okay.
But every now and then, and if it's a run to the bank situation, as we call it, that they really need some money really fast, I'll do my due diligence. I might self-close it and then go back and get title insurance right afterwards. Because it does, most of the properties that we're selling now, it makes it more marketable, if it's bought with title insurance, of course. You don't have to, but I can demand more money on the sales side with it.
There's a lot of different types of land. There's land niches within the land niche.
True.
So there's some rural vacant land that we buy so cheap, that's so rural, that it's just the cost of actually closing the property exceeds the purchase price. So in those situations, we just self-close it.
We have stuff on eBay right now.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they're just that low that we just buy it and try and just
and that's
sell
a whole
it.
separate operation with separate staff and separate everything.
Interesting. Okay, so you're getting to where I was coming from, where I was going next was to understand more of the exit. So the exit is, for you guys, the exit is often just sell the entire property. But what's real? Okay, again, cash flow diary. I can't help but think, why not create it? Why terms and create this bundle of notes that you would be able to get a high yield on?
Well, you sure can, and we sure did, and we still do. So usually it's the really good properties that we might want to hang on to for a while, because what ends up happening is we don't usually sell the notes. We usually just keep the property anyway. And often what happens, at some point, the percentage of people falling off and disappearing is really, really high. So when that happens, we just take the property back and then sell it again.
Yeah.
There's a huge opportunity for land leasing too. I did a deal before Jill was in the picture where I bought a piece of urban property really inexpensively and then leased it to a RV storage company right next door for a pretty good price, and eventually sold it to them. There's also, in a rural vacant land scenario, I bought a very large ranch adjacent to an existing functioning ranch and just leased the land to them. So there's a lot of ways to cash flow from land. In fact, our original program is called that, Cash Flow from Land.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask a very selfish question for myself. Here we go. Let's pretend, hypothetically, but not so hypothetically. Because again, when I'm running a short-term rental model, it's what we do. And I also know running, say, an RV park would be very profitable and is basically land plus sewer. And that's like what I think about. If I wanted to acquire a 5-acre parcel of land in the state of California and or Utah or Nevada, you're telling me I could be that specific, and even including the use case, and you would be able to help me find something?
Well, I'm being real honest here. I wouldn't be able to help you find something, but I could show you how to do it. and I can just about guarantee, I can do everything short of guaranteeing that whatever you do find, you're going to be buying it for half of what it's worth the next day.
I'm going to add to that. So what we do, Jay, though, is could I get in and I only want this size in this area, and I want it zoned this way, so I know it could be used how I use it, and only send offers to that group? Heck yeah.
And then a very predictable number are going to either call you back or sign them and send it back. Then that's when the due diligence work starts for us. Everybody does this backwards. Everybody goes out and looks at a piece of property and says, does this round peg property fit in my square hole? And what do I have to do to change it to get it to that point? And they spend a lot of time and energy, and usually, it doesn't happen. We do it the other way. We send all this stuff out. And then what comes back is very predictable. We analyze it according to the round peg and put the round peg in a round hole, if that makes sense. And that concept, it puts us in the driver's seat, because I can send out 10,000 offers or I can send out 10 million. And the process is just about the same and takes just about the same amount of time the way that we price it, with very predictable results.
Yeah, no, I like this. I mean, there are many. I can see this being something a person just graduating high school would be able to do, as opposed to necessarily even going to college. Because I'm assuming some of like, what's an average entry point on you said the rural land stuff. Like, what would you say that looks like in terms of? We'll go with a price per acre, since obviously the plot size could be different.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, you're exactly right. We have several people in our community that are fresh out of school, fresh out of the military, stuff like that, and they've been following us for a while, and they've saved up some money. I used to tell them, you could really do this. I'd like to have $10,000 to invest. If you could come up with $10,000 to invest, what I would tell you to do, and would show you to do, is how to go out and get 10 $1,000 properties that you could sell tomorrow for $2,000 because they're worth $5,000. So you do that real quick. Now you got $20,000. Okay, now do it again. Now you got 40. You see where I'm going? And then at $150,000, you might start making some different decisions. Do I want to keep this up? Do I want to add a zero on my properties? Do I want to go for a different property type? Do I want to go for maybe some info lots? Do I want to try this with houses or, whatever it is? Because we have access to all of that.
Yeah, no, I like it. I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Jill and I are licensed providers for the largest 3 assessors database aggregators in the country: RealQuest Pro, Settle Pro, 24/7, and DataTree. And Jill's like motioning to me right now to stop getting so technical. But, it's really important to understand that the quality of data is what matters.
Oh, I got you. And Jill, it's okay. If he gets technical, I'll make sure he says it in English so that everybody else can understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's totally fine. Totally fine. I'm just, what's going through my head is, remember how I said earlier, Jill, I was thinking about, I'm a father of 3 daughters.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going, I wonder, like my 11-year-old is, well, they're all really entrepreneurial in their own way. But my 11-year-old would probably be willing to do something like this. That's what's really going through my head at this particular moment. And I'm like, that would be interesting because, hey, help her out. And she could, I don't know what she would just keep going because she would never stop. She wouldn't stop until she was the best, because that's just the way she is. But it sounds relatively simple. Like, I mean, that's what I'm hearing. Now, do a significant number of the people just, like I said, keep them and create bunches of notes? What are the, let me ask this differently. What is the unique exit strategy that we have never heard that is possible with land that you guys go, yeah, we do this all the time?
Well, what we do, and this is all through the course of a lot of decades.
Sure.
We love to buy.
Yep.
Because we've established this massive list of people that are consistent buyers from us. We love to buy the property, usually mark it up a certain predictable amount that we disclose to who we're going to sell it to, and then resell it for cash. That's because we're just an acquisition machine. And then they have a bunch of choices. They can develop the property. I had one guy buy an 80-acre piece of property from me and put an airport in it.
I'm
he's
sorry,
begging
did you
me
say
for
an
more
airport?
constantly. And so, but
you said an airport. I just want to make sure I heard that right.
Yeah. Yeah, like a rural cargo airport in California, actually.
Go on.
And but the typical deal for us is we sell a property to we are the reseller. So we buy it, we immediately resell it very inexpensively at a very low wholesale amount. We have consistent customers that then get it, own it, resell it on terms, let the note season, and sell the note after 6 or 8 months at a discount rate, which all your listeners are familiar with.
Well, what's funny is that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, why would I not just build a portfolio of notes that I could then liquidate if I so decided? Or, I mean, why would you not do this? And this is crazy. But I think one of the things, I think I'm going to hit on something right here. So in all cases, though, you pretty much have to build your own buyer's list, I would assume, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and that's an integral part of our education and how you use social media. And what's great about this this product type is that it's very unique. So just organically, you can spread the word pretty quickly. And if people are interested, what I've noticed over the years about land people is that career kind of chooses them. They don't choose it for themselves, and it just sinks to them. Like a lot of people are just like, what are you talking about? Land? Forget it. I want to buy a house. I want to flip houses. So, but the people that understand land, they just seem to find you.
What about any sort of resource rights? Is that ever included? Is that like part of the deal?
You mean like you were talking like mineral rights?
Yeah, land, water, access, those types of things.
We usually roll along that we're just doing surface rights, and if someone acquires some in the process, hey, good for them. I'm not out seeking out that in particular.
Mineral rights are real hard to trace. They only get conveyed via the deed, so you really need to look back through the chain of title. It's a lot of paper intense work to see who owns mineral rights. So Jill and I decided a long time ago that regardless of who owns the mineral rights, by the time it gets to us, we are selling the property, assuming that it doesn't have any.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Well, then let me ask another one, because this one be of also personal interest. What about the ones where they have a cell phone tower already on the piece of land?
Great.
Yeah, I love those types of
now
properties.
It's improved.
And billboards. We have I'll call them clients that love billboard right along the freeway property. It cracks me up because I'm like, there's no chance that the governing agencies are going to allow a billboard to go on this property, but they just love to buy it from us and collect it. Like, I've heard people use this phrase on the internet recently. It's like man jewelry. They love to collect it for some reason.
Well, if it already has the cell phone tower on it, wouldn't they then inherit the lease? Or is it?
Yeah, exactly. Now you're already buying some cash flowing.
That's
on there.
exact. Okay, so let's be really clear. That would be my 100% focus is the land with cell phone towers on them, because having owned them, I really, really, really want to sell that lease to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, that's the definition of passive income right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, I got it. This is interesting. I like what you guys are up to. Now, for those that have listened this far and are probably just as intrigued as I am, what's going to be the best way for them to track you guys down, find out more about what you're doing?
Check us out at landacademy.com. You'll find everything there.
Crazy. I love it. The thing that I like about being an entrepreneur is that we get to create and find a way out of what is seemingly no way, and do something with it, and then you guys are actually out there sharing it with others. Now, as we wind down, I've got a final question for you, because I'm curious to hear your answer on this one. There are a number of people who have been listening, et cetera, today, and they started in one particular place, and now they're at another. They've listened this entire time. Maybe they've been intrigued in various different forms, and they're at what I like to call that precipice of decision. And when that happens, you're human. You've been there. When we get to that part, what happens is that oftentimes we have a companion, and that companion comes in the form of a voice, and it's a voice that reminds us of why it won't work, how it didn't work last time. And you're going to really do what? I mean, you just heard some people on a podcast. Who are they really? I mean, they don't really do this. 16,000? No. And even if that's true, it's not going to work for you. I mean, and for some people, they're related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. This time they're actually going to follow through. They're going to do exactly what you suggest. And they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
This is right up Jill's. Jill loves this stuff.
They would scrape together what they have. Seriously, if they want to do this, we just talked to a guy on a member call last Thursday. He joined our program. 6 days in, his mailer is going out. Nice. He is not stopping. That guy will kill it.
Yeah, he's going to be.
And he did exactly what we said. Everybody, you get into this, and we all have our own, like you said, the voice. Oh, that can't be right. That can't be this. I'm going to put your head down, listen to everybody. We have hundreds of people that were right in your shoes, right ahead of you. And they're going to tell you the same thing. Trust it, do it. Stephen and Jill say, follow the steps, watch what happens. And then they're going to do that and come up and go, holy cow, this works. I need to go buy some more.
I mean, I would answer it this way. We have our own podcast. I would spend the next 48 hours listening to that.
Okay.
But we have, 1,200 episodes, I think, since 2015. And then we have a free website called landinvestors.com, which is essentially like a Facebook, but for what we do. And all of our members are in there. It's totally free. Some of the advanced members, our advanced members are in there. There are regular members, and then there's a huge free community in there. I would go in there and ask really tough questions like, are these guys for real? Is this a bunch of malarkey? What's the catch? It can't be this easy. And then a lot of people will pipe in and say, and really, really tell you the truth, because on shows like this, we are talking about the highlights and telling great stories, but there's a lot of hard work involved in this and a huge commitment, a mental commitment, which I think you referred to earlier.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. You do realize that the one challenge with what you just said, Stephen, is that most people don't use the word malarkey anymore. Right?
Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Facebook for using
Thank you,
that
Jay. There are a few of those.
Facebook shut me down for like 30 days for using that word.
Yeah, I'm just trying to tell you, it's all good though. It's all good. I understood what you meant, and that's great. Now, I just, like I said earlier, I just want to say thanks. Because, like I said, superheroes have to make a choice. They choose to share their special gift. Because you don't have to, but you've chosen to, and because you've chosen to, there are thousands of people across the globe who are now experiencing a completely different life, and I appreciate that 100%. And because that's exactly what we're here to do, is to help more people become entrepreneurs, realize that it's possible for them, and you're out there doing it and making it happen. So let me be just one of the first to say thank you for taking the time to invest your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
Thank you, Jay.
All right,
Thanks
ladies and gentlemen.
So much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means get over to landacademy.com. When? Now. Why? Because you heard the curiosity in my own voice. You heard a way for you to make it happen. You heard this could have been your entry point. If Land has been singing to you, then, well, you know exactly what to do. You know where to go. And you can't even use the excuse of, I don't have the money, Jay, because they gave you a resource that was 100% free. As in, doesn't cost you any money, but will cost you time. And that's what's important. Go make that investment today. Because here's the thing. Until you write an offer, your life isn't going to change. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.